Right, year 10, I'm going to try and explain to you how you go about sampling populations of organisms within a ecosystem. Okay, so please bear with me because I'm just having to use limited tech. Right, okay, so if you've got a population of animals or plants spread over an area, so say for example the Amazon jungle, you're not going to be able to go and count the number of a particular bird or a particular plant or a particular frog in the whole of the Amazon jungle. Okay, so what we need to do as scientists, we would take a sample so that it will help us estimate the population of frogs in the Amazon jungle. Okay, now it's a really important technique and it is a required practical, so you would have to be able to describe what you would do to come up with your estimated population. Okay, so I'm going to work through the process and try and explain to you how it works. So if you can see my area here, this is looking at birds, a population of birds on an island. Okay, so this part here is the land, and then you can see you've got the beach and the sea. Okay, now just looking at it, you can see that some birds live, some of them are clustered together and some of them are far apart. Okay, so some squares, so this top square here has got a lot of birds in it, the one next to it has only got a couple of nests. Okay, so the distribution isn't even all over the area, so that's the first thing that we need to think about. Now we need to try and estimate how many birds are living on this island. Okay, because I'm certainly not going to go around. It might be that they're living on a cliff. It could be that I can't get to it. It could be that they're quite vicious. Okay, so I'm going to try and estimate the population of birds to check that they're all doing okay. Now, the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to use some areas. I need to decide on a sample. Now, I've divided my island up into these squares. Okay, now I've got 6 by 6. Okay, which gives me 36 squares. Now I don't want to do all of the squares, but at the same time, if I just picked one square, so say I picked this square, there's 3, 6, 9 birds in that square. Okay, some of them there's more of them, some of them there's less of them. So that isn't necessarily representative to say that every square will contain 9 birds. So I'm going to take a sample that gives me a better average. Okay, so I'm going to take a sample of 10 squares. I'm going to count the birds in 10 of my squares. Now, to avoid any bias, what we need to do is we need to do a random sample. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with my random numbers as to which squares I'm going to sample. Now, I'm going to work through this example and then you're going to have one of yourself. So you've got the sample number, I've got 10 samples, and then I've got my 2 random numbers. Now I'm using dice. Okay, I've made some dice and I'm going to throw them and they're going to give me my random numbers. So I've got 3 and 4. Now you could use your numbers of your phone number. I've got 6 and 5. You can ask somebody in your house if you've got dice. Fantastic. Okay, so that was 6 and 4. You just need to come up with a way of coming up with 10 random pairs of numbers to avoid bias. And I've got 6 and 5 again, so I'm going to do it the other way around. So I've got 5, 6. Okay, 6, 3. Oops, 5, 3. Okay, 1, 3. 2. Lost my dice. 4, 1, and then the last one is 2, 3. So now I've come up with the squares, the random squares that I am going to count my birds in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my map. Hopefully, I don't know whether you'll be able to see both at the same time, but I'll do the best that I can. So my first number is across 3 and up 4. So I'm going to go across 3 squares and I'm going to go up to number 4 and I'm going to count this square. In fact, let me get a highlighter pen because it will be easier for you to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to count the birds in this square. Okay, then I'm going to do 6, 5. So I'm going to go across to 6 and up to 5 and I'm going to count the birds in that square. So that's my second random sample. Then I've got 6, 4. Okay, then I've got 1, 1. Then I've got 5, 6, 6, 3. Sorry, I made you wobble then. 5, 3, 5, go across 5, up 3 is that one. Where was he? 1, 3, so cross 1, up 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3. Okay, so I have now got random squares that I'm going to count the birds in. So what I'm going to do is for each of those squares, I'm going to count the number of dots that represent the birds. Okay, so I'm going to move on to this sheet. So hopefully you can see what it is that I'm doing. So the number of nests in square 3, 4 is the one that I counted before actually, which is 9. Okay, in 6, 5 there are 2. Okay, so you can see already that they're not evenly spread. I apologise that I keep going out of focus. Okay, then I've got 6, 4, so there is 6 in that one. I've got 1, 1, there is 2, 5, 6 has got 2, 6, 3 has got 2. Now I know that I might not be hitting the birds, but this is where the random sampling comes in. Okay, I can't suddenly go, well, that square's only got the same number in as the one next to it. I need to find a square with more in. There's always a degree of error whenever you're doing an estimated population size. Right, so 5, 3 is 3, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3 is, oh, there's quite a lot in this one. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21. 4 and 1 is 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then the last one, 2, 3, is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Okay, so now I've counted the number of nests in my random sample. I need to find an average per square. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add up all my totals. I'll just pop you on there a little bit, that might be better. So I'm going to add up all my totals. So I've got 9 plus 2 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 8 plus 21 plus 14 plus 14, which gives me a total of 80 birds, or 80 nests. Okay, and then my average, because there was 10 samples, I'll do that divided by 10. So 80 divided by 10 is 8. So on average of a random sample, we're suggesting that there is 8 nests per square. Okay, so I'm going to write that down here. So my average out of 10 nests is 8. Okay, now I've got, this is where I need to work out the total area. So the total number of squares I've got, I had 6 by 6, which is 36. Okay, so I know the size of my area that I'm dealing with. I've worked out an average per square. Okay, so my estimate of the number of nests now, I just multiply them together. So I multiply my average by my total area. Okay, so I'm going to do the average, which is 8, multiplied by my number of squares, which is 36. So 8 times 36, which will give me 288 nests. So what I'm saying is that I estimate, now I might be wrong, it might not be completely accurate, okay, but it's an estimated population. So what I'm saying is that in that whole area, based on my sample, okay, then I have got 288 nests. Now it might be that if my sample was taken in other areas, then I would have ended up with a slightly different one. But at least it gives us an idea of the size of the population of the organism that we're studying. Okay, now that tells me that there's 288 nests. Now I would assume that each nest has a mummy bird and a daddy bird. Okay, so the number of birds that I would have, so there's a pair for each one. So I'm going to multiply my number of nests by 2, which gives me a population of 576 of the birds. Okay, so first of all, I've got my random squares. That's the most important thing. It has to be random. Oops, Daisy. It has to be random, a random sample. Okay, I've identified my squares. I've counted how many nests I've got in each square so that I can work out an average per square. Okay, and then once I know the area, okay, now I've assumed that I've just counted that there's 36 squares. You might be given values to calculate an area. Okay, so sometimes exam questions are a little bit more tricky than this, but this will at least give you practice at doing it. So I have put another example of a similar sampling exercise on class charts for you to do. Okay, so you are going to be sampling, I think it's antelope. You've got an aerial photo of some antelope, but you're going to do exactly the same idea. So you need to get, first of all, your random numbers of your sample. You're going to take 10 samples, the same as I did, okay, and you're going to work through to try and estimate the population of antelope in that area. Now, chances are you're all going to come up with a slightly different answer as a total, but it is an estimate, okay? So I will go through that example on Tuesday so that you can check what you have got, okay?